So good morning, everyone. I'm Ron Kellett, and I am a professor and director of the School of Architecture and Landscape Architecture, also known as SALA at UBC. And on behalf of the faculty, staff, and students of SALA, welcome to this open house for prospective students. There are about 300 of you watching this morning. Just under half of you are graduate students, and about just over half of you are prospective undergraduate students. And we're, of course, very pleased that you are interested in our school and have joined us today. I hope that we communicate clearly how deeply committed and proud of what we do here is to us, and we welcome this opportunity to share some of that with you. So we've organized our morning in two parts. I'll offer what will necessarily be a brief and broad introduction to the school, which I hope will prepare you for the second part, which is an opportunity to meet in groups that are closer to the programs that you're interested in. And at the end of my session here, we will direct you to how to get to those groups. And just heads up, the undergraduate prospective students would stay in this session, and the graduate students would get a link to a different one. And we ask you to hold your questions for the second part, as there will be far better opportunity and smaller groups within which to ask those questions. So along the way, you're going to meet some of my colleagues and some of our students. First and foremost, you'll meet some faculty members and chairs of the academic programs in which you're interested. These include Madi Fujita, Case Lockman, and Blair Satterfield, whose affiliations are shown here. You'll also probably meet some of my staff colleagues, which include Tamara Ross, Tara Deans, Janice O'Donnell, and Emma Fennell. Some of them might be quietly in the background, but I assure you they're there doing their best to look after us today. You'll also meet a number of our students. So from our graduate programs, you'll meet Noura, Ayman, Alex, and Katrina. And from our undergraduate Bachelor of Design program, you'll meet Nishi, Chris, Gazal, and Miyuchi over the course of the day. So what I hope you'll hear from all of us in different ways is that SALA is a creative community of people who hold deeply held values of community, social justice, integrity, collaboration, and ecology in the service of design for people, place, and planet. And it's in that spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth that accompanies these values that we acknowledge the place on which we gather today is on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples, including the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. Others among us join virtually from other near and distant nations, and we encourage all of us to take a moment to acknowledge those Indigenous peoples and territories of the places from which you join us today. First and foremost, I just want to set forward this notion of who we are. What does SALA care about, and how do we imagine ourselves? So we see ourselves fundamentally as a design school, and the processes of design, the practice of design, the priorities of design permeate everything that we do. That's not unlike many other design schools. This is studios at the center of our programs, and this is an image of a rather generously full studio, probably at the end of the semester in the Lasserre building. But what I want to draw your attention to is perhaps some of the differences that our school delights in what we bring to this discourse of the many design schools that are in the world and in the country. So we see ourselves as educating a next generation of designers, and we use that phrase broadly: architects, landscape architects, urban designers, to take the capabilities of design and use it to address the pressing global challenges of our time. And we really see design as a form of agency with which to be a responsible and effective citizen in the world. And what that means, and to us, is that we teach what we believe is an artful, creative synthesis of natural and built environments and this last part is extremely important, across scales. We see regions, cities, sites, buildings, artifacts as all part of a carefully linked series of interconnections that you need to be able to understand and work across all of those scales. Underneath that is a kind of interest, is an understanding of land, natural systems, environment, and ecology on which this integration depends. So a lot of the roots of this school have come out of an environmental awareness and an understanding of how environment is a part of everything that we do as designers. Now, to get more practical about that, SALA has 7 interconnected academic programs that share this perspective. Each of these circles is roughly equal to the scale of that by enrollment, and the number you see under each one is about when they started. So you can kind of get the sense that we've been growing this enterprise for quite a number of years. So BDES, which is our newest program, was officially launched in 2020, but we've been working on this for quite a long time. And we've built that upon our strengths in a professional graduate degree in architecture, which is the oldest degree in the school, and a professional graduate degree in landscape architecture, which has been also here for more than a generation. More recently, we've got a dual degree program that overlaps between the architecture and landscape architecture programs, MARCLA, which stands for Master of Architecture and Landscape Architecture. And then there's also some other degrees up in the corner there that are advanced research degrees in architecture and also in landscape architecture. So some of the ties that bind these courses, programs, and faculty and students who participate in them together, I'll just kind of hit on some of the more important ones. We take great pride in being engaged with this place. The Greater Vancouver area and the whole West Coast is a wonderful place within which to study design. This is in many ways a very progressive place which touches upon many of the themes that have been important to the school. And so we use that in a lot of different ways, but here are some of them. We use the city and the communities around us as a kind of laboratory. We go out and learn from them and take examples from them and begin to interact with them as a way of learning about design. We do things with the community. We do studio projects, and in this instance, a design build project that engage community partners, and we see this as an important part of how you learn about things that we care about. And I know you won't be able to see this, but those actually are SALA faculty dressed as sushi on that platter. And we have lots of other occasions to go out and do useful and important things in relationship to our community partners. So our classes and studios sometimes work with community groups, and our research and our classes also often create things that are useful out there in the world. That's not to say that this is a very regionally focused place. There is, partly because of our student body is from around the world. We are also fully aware that things we do and care about are really well connected to the world. And so we have many programs that reach out to other places. We have study abroad programs, and we have other kinds of ways to go engage the broader world, such as we've had several studios in South Asia, one of which I led the first one in Mumbai, and my colleague John Bass was in Chandigarh a few years ago. Some other things are more short term and take place over the summers, and Madi, who some of you will meet a little bit later today, has taken students to Japan, among other places. And similarly, we have a culture of linking design to the processes of making that is very much a part of the ethic and aesthetic and sensibilities of the school. We have facilities for making and doing and teaching and learning in this. There are some students who are working on projects in the shop that's in the main building, Le Serre, and we think of that as a teaching space. in part, but also we see it as a kind of a lens or a portal by which we take what we learn in those contexts out into the world. So these happen at many different scales. So this example is one that's doing these small built installation using robotic fabrication techniques, of which you will see when you are on campus, at least one or two of them kind of standing around. And these are examples that are built rather quickly, but take what happens in shops and takes them out to the world. There are also much more sophisticated design build projects that take much longer. There are things where we actually do things that are very much buildings that happen in collaboration with other clients. So this one, for example, is some work that we've been picking away at on Gambier Island for a number of years, and my colleague Greg Johnson is a vigorous leader of that effort. And as you can see, our students get quite closely involved with all these projects. So this was the design build crew from a few years ago working on that. And then again, if you're on campus, this is one that you probably would walk by on your way into campus. It's right near the bookstore and the main approach to campus. This is a design build project that was a wood recycling project that reuses some felled timber from a campus building project that was ripped into small chunks, and a pavilion was made out of those small chunks, and it was designed to be disassembled and reused as garden containers at elementary school sites after it's finished its useful purpose here. So most important, SALA is a community of people, and if you want to get a sense of the magnitude of it, this year we're just under 400 students. We have 24 full-time faculty, but we also work heavily with local professionals, and at various times over the course of an academic year, there are about 50 of those professionals who come and work with us in our classes. And there are 13 staff with varying specialties that support all of us in that work. Our students are mostly graduates, so the school's about 3/4 of graduate programs. They're mostly Canadian, and they're mostly women. This is, as you might imagine, something that changes from year to year to year and over time, but this is where we are at this point in time today. Most important about that community is that there's a real sense of creative collaboration that cuts across all the people. We spend a lot of time cultivating the interest and ability of our students to learn to work together in design studios and to work with faculty and to work with other students in other programs. This is, I think, a major point of pride that the school has about how we teach and how we learn. And the student community is very vigorous in many, many different ways. There's a very active student group. This is from an introductory workshop a few years ago when we welcome all the new students to the program in late August and early September. And on the 3rd floor of LaSalle, there's a student space that's been there since the 60s that is a source of many social activities, including this example, which is a health and wellness day recently. If you want to see more about this very energetic student community, may I recommend that you go to our website. There's a very vigorous Instagram feed that tells you all kinds of things that I can't possibly share with you today. As I said, it's a very vigorous and energetic learning community. So I want to, in that spirit, is kind of invite our students who are not only a hugely important part of our school, but they're extremely smart, thoughtful, talented people. And as peer learning is an important part of design education, I thought it would be very good to kind of let you hear from them. So I've invited 3, Alex, Katrina, and Nishi from different programs of the school to come get our conversations together started today. So what I've asked them to do is to situate themselves in your position at a point where they were thinking about which design school was the right one for them and what they learned from that experience and what advice they might share from you. So I'm about to shut my screen off, so we'll be able to see Alex, Katrina, and Nishi in a minute. And we'll speak to them until a few minutes before 11, and then we'll send you off to your breakout session. So I'm going to stop sharing, Emma, so if you're ready to transition. So let me be clear, everybody's on the screen, Em?
Yes,
Okay.
we're all good.
Okay, so thank you so much. So as I've kind of given the preamble here, maybe the best thing to do is I'll ask you each individually, when you were thinking about finding a design school to which you would like to apply, what were some of the most important considerations that you weighed? And, whatever those might be, I'm eager to hear the diversity of motivations you might have had. So maybe I'll just arbitrarily start with Katrina and then kind of work left across my screen. So that'd be Nishi next and then Alex last. So Katrina, if you're ready to ask us that.
Yeah, sounds good. So I will start by saying that I did the environmental design program as my undergrad at UBC. So I kind of had a foot in the door of understanding what the UBC education and the SALA education would be like. And I think that kind of greatly impacted my application for the master's program because I already had quite a few connections with profs and I really enjoyed the smaller class sizes and also engaging with TAs, teaching assistants. And that kind of got me thinking about what other opportunities there were for working within SALA as a teaching assistant and also as a research assistant with other profs. That greatly impacted my decision. I also had the opportunity to go on a study abroad to Japan in my undergrad. And I think that experience and having the opportunity for more of those in the master's program was something I was really excited about. And also just knowing that I eventually wanted to work in Vancouver, that kind of pushed me to this UBC program.
Thank you so much, Katrina. Nishi, you're an undergraduate student. You're much more, you're probably on the other end of the circumstance that Katrina was telling us about. How did you think about this?
I think personally, I didn't know what I wanted to do after 12th grade. So the program at UBC just felt like the right fit for me because it's not just one discipline. You get to learn a bit about architecture, landscape architecture, as well as urbanism. So it takes a holistic approach towards design. And that seemed like the right option for me. And since I moved from another country, another important thing for me was the class size and just knowing that it's going to be 60 of them and like I would see them on a daily basis just felt very reassuring. And just like how Katrina was saying, I was looking at co-op options, study abroad, and all of these kind of also led me to pick UBC over the other schools that I applied to.
Thank you so much, Nishi. Alex, same question to you. Alex is a Master of Architecture student. You're in your second year, I think. Is that right? So you're kind of
Yes, I'm in my second year now. So yeah, I think thinking back to when I was applying to graduate school, something I knew that I wanted to pursue architecture. So that helped me like narrow the scope of what schools I wanted to apply to. I did my undergraduate in Toronto. And so as well, something that I was looking to was maybe just getting some experience outside of, I guess, where I grew up. So just understanding different contexts and design sort of, I guess, in a bigger perspective was really exciting as to why I ended up choosing UBC, as well as sort of, I guess, echoing what has already been said in like class sizes, as well as just like just doing your research and like where you are applying and really sort of understanding what you like some of the courses and stuff that you're going to be actually learning once you get to the school.
Thank you, Alex. One of the things that's kind of interesting for the audience today is that they'll have a chance to ask questions that might be top of mind, shall we say. As you look back on those experiences about kind of finding the right place and learning about them, what question or questions did you ask, or maybe more importantly, would you have liked to have asked with hindsight as you weighed those considerations? So maybe I'll start with Nishi and then Alex and then Katrina this time. So.
Sorry, Ron, if you don't mind, can you repeat the question again?
Yes, of course. I was trying to transport you back to that moment when you were weighing all these things that you were telling us about, and wondering if there was a question that you asked that you thought was really important, or I was also offering the option that maybe there was one that you wished you would have asked that could have been really important, and maybe share some of those thoughts with the audience today.
I think this is a very cliche question, but for me, because I was moving from another country, I wanted to know how the weather was at Vancouver. I didn't expect it to rain so much. So just knowing, being prepared that it's gonna rain a lot, that was one important factor for me. Another thing, I think I already mentioned this, but the class size, definitely, just knowing whether it was, just knowing how many students would be with me, I think that was another important factor. And yeah, I think it was just very small, tiny questions.
No, that's great. Now the cat's out of the bag. Everybody knows it rains here. Alex, how would you respond to that?
I think a good question to ask, or maybe look into, is to see what kind of maybe studios the school is offering, I guess. I was sort of like, that's something that I didn't look into too much, and I think like I really love the options that we've had here at UBC, but I think maybe sort of understanding that before sort of making a decision would have been either like a good or a bad thing, I guess, depending on what the school is offering and sort of, yeah, things like that.
Thanks, Alex. Katrina?
Yeah, just to add to that, I would say maybe ask some general questions about student experiences to kind of get a sense of the everyday life and also the range of opportunities. And even just looking at the slides that Ron just presented of maybe design build or study abroad or anything like that, that maybe piques your interest, maybe ask a bit more about that. There's of course more information on the website, but just to get like a student voice might be useful to kind of get a sense of the school and the students that are participating.
Yeah, I not to confuse us or distract us, but I remember my own experience, like standing in a studio for the first time and thinking, yeah, I could go to school in a place like this was a big part of it. So touching things is really valuable. This is perhaps a really easy question. I know that you probably had options to weigh when you were getting ready to come back to school for some of you, and I'm just curious how many applications you might have made. So maybe I can't remember whose turn it is to start. It might be Alex's turn to start. So.
Yeah, I think I made for graduate school, I think I made around 4 or 5 applications, just across different architecture schools here in Canada.
Thank you, Alex. Nishi, we'll go to you next. I guess you're in the middle of my screen again.
I made around 6 applications, and I sent around 3 to Canada and 3 to Australia. So I weighed between both the countries.
Great, thank you so much. Katrina?
So I only made 2, one of which is of course UBC, and that was with the knowledge that after my undergrad degree, a lot of my classmates were already getting jobs in the city. So I kind of thought, I want to work in Vancouver. If it doesn't work out for me for grad school, that's another path I could go. And I felt like I had a lot of opportunities coming out of my undergrad.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you one more question, then I'll let everybody go off to the next segment here. So kind of thinking back on all things, both general and specific, what advice would you have for this audience as they approach today and the next month or so as they kind of get their head into being a student. So maybe I'll start with Nishi this time. So.
Sorry. I think be honest and true to yourself when you're working on the design project. Try to bring in yourself in that design process as well as how you approach the creative test. I feel like try to show who you are while sending that application in. Just try to be vulnerable and put yourself out there.
Thanks. For maybe the audience might not know, there is a little creative test that's part of our application, and it's for the undergraduate program, and that's great advice, Nishi. So thank you so much. So Katrina, what's your advice for this audience?
Maybe some more general advice would be just to have in the back of your mind what your next steps are and really what you want to get out of your education. I felt like for me, having some ideas of that really helped me with my research on UBC and thinking about what I actually want to do afterwards, but also I think like Alex said, like what do you actually want to do as a student in the program as well?
Thanks. And the last word is all yours, Alex.
I think there's been some great advice that's been said already, but yeah, just make sure you do your research when you're applying to schools, and while you're at schools for sure, like I think it's totally okay to sort of be a bit selfish and research and look into things that you're really interested in. And I think that's the point of education. So take advantage of that. And then, yeah, I think like being honest and being true and like all, you know, all of that sort of cheesy stuff, it really does help and it makes a difference. So yeah.
That's all great advice. And thank you so much, Alex, Nishi, and Katrina. It's wonderful to hear your voices. And I hope our audience benefited from some of the words that you shared with them. So thank you so much. And I believe Tara Deans is going to assist those who have to move and remind those who should stay here to stay here. So Tara, it's all you.